Okay, welcome today to the session on the request for proposals process for the FSOS awards. We've changed the title just slightly and we're calling them proposals rather than applications. One of the things that I think is really important for us for everybody to understand is that it is for funding, and there's no doubt about it that the funding is important. But as important, I think, is that you're developing skills to do grant writing, because in grant writing, you have to really be succinct. You have to be really sharp in your description of your research. You have to get aims down. When you get to your dissertation proposal, you use the NIH format, which is aims, and then the steps that you're going to take, etc. And you have to have a reasonable timeline to complete those steps, and then you have to report on them. So it gives you some of the initial kinds of flavor of what it's like to write a proposal. And I think for many of us, writing succinctly in a short, briefly is harder than writing a long paper. And I know people dread the long papers, but getting it down into one page is not always easy. So this is not something that you do the week before. It's something that takes a few drafts and feedback, which is why we're doing it now on December 6th, when it's not due until January 28th, because we want you to have time to share with each other and get feedback, but also with your advisor and anybody else you feel it helps you to write clearly. Sometimes it's helpful to give it to somebody that actually knows research, but is not in your area, just so that they can go, I'm not sure what this means. So you can, have somebody with a kind of an outsider lens look at it. I want to also say that we have Armida is here, as well as Jalandra's online, and both are on the committee, the awards committee this year. Armida and I are always on it because of our, while we're in our positions. I'm a rotating person in my position. Armida is the director of CFT. So that's kind of, oh, and Jalandra as well. Yes, we're all permanent, semi-permanent for the time being, right, Jalandra. And then Ty Mendenhall is the rotating faculty member and serves an appointment term on the committee. So we will be meeting and making those decisions, and we'll use a rubric, and we'll go over a little bit of the rubric with you, especially for those of you that are doing this for the first time. And I'm glad that Alex is here and Budu's here. And we also have Guanyu online. There might be others I don't see on my screen, but that have gone through this one time. And if you share any words of wisdom or experience, that will be great for first-year students to hear from you. So these awards are for both summer and for the academic year. And I think first-year cohort, did you get an award for summer in your letters? You did not this year. Okay. So if you have a fellowship, you may have gotten some summer awards. I don't know who that might apply to. If you did get an award in your offer, sometimes for fellowships, there's an award that goes with the offer. And you still need to put a proposal for summer together. It's just so that we know what you're working on, and that we want to be able to support you in that. And then there is some accountability for those funds as well. We want to make sure that you're moving forward and using those funds to move forward. It's not anything punitive. It's just more like we want to support you and keep you moving in the direction towards your goals. So this is for both of those things. So we'd expect that you're not going to accomplish everything in the summer. So some things go summer through the academic year. There might be some things you get done in the summer, but there are also things that will continue through the year. And so you can think about your timeline, both summer and then academic year, and discrete as well as continuous through the academic year. So you have to be a full-time student in, we'll get over to the document here, in Family Social Science. And there are examples of successful proposals that we have linked in that, there's a link there that you can check it out. Sometimes it's just nice to see how things are written, if that will help. And you can be an MA, PhD, or PhD degree program. And then we look at the rubric, and then we'll also look at timely program progress. And just know that that's a work in progress. The committee, I haven't gotten back to you because after the faculty meeting and your feedback, the grad program committee is meeting on Friday. We're going to be grappling with some of that and trying to make a little bit more sense. I think there probably was some misunderstanding about the rubric that needs to be cleared up, and I will own that I didn't. For those of you that attended the session in person, I think that wasn't such a big issue because you had the context about why we were doing it and how we were going about it. But for others that didn't have that, it seemed like a little shock and seemed like something totally new. So we'll work through it and we'll get that to you. But please know that it is not meant to be punitive. It's not meant to be restrictive. It's to be supportive of your development and progress, to get you done because you don't want to spend a lot of time here. And that's why we support you with some funding over the summer, because number one, if you don't, you probably need to work, because you can't survive without some form of, support. You can't focus on your research. You need to be working. And number two, the international students are really restricted in what they can and cannot do based on their visas. So if you did get your acceptance letter says your funding, you can't get additional funding, but you can apply for, you give us your goals, but you can apply for summer or academic year funding. And then let's see. So we just want you to really follow, just like any grant submission, just follow the instructions. And they're pretty straightforward. I don't think they're overly onerous. They just, we just, how you name, your submission, your proposal submission, so we can track them. Sumitra will be sending out more details on the actual submission and how you do that shortly. Now there are, we'll talk about that, but there are 2 dissertation fellowships in the department, one funded by Dr. David Olson and one in honor of Mary Ellen McFarland. And those are, I don't know if anybody's at that point, not quite yet. So you will be soon, Alex. But so anyway, yeah. What? I'm sorry?
Just for dissertation, she might be.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there probably somebody. Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't see Daniela's on it. Yeah, I said, of course. Hi, Daniela. Yes, there are people online that I can't always see, so pardon me for not paying attention. We are going to look at the rubric, and that, and the one thing that's new this year for those that have done this before is that the committee is going to try to align your research interests with the donor intent. So these funds are funds from donors, and they are living and not living. Some are really broad and some are very specific. Like there's one on ambiguous loss. So that's very specific. There's some that are really broad, like the Waller funds. You might have heard of those. Those are really broad. So what Sarah has come up with is some keywords that kind of connect to some of the donors' intents. And so there'll be a drop-down menu. And please don't feel like if you only have 1 or 2 that your work aligns with, don't worry about that. If you only have 1, or if you don't have any, because we have funding that we can put with you. It's just that if your funding matches the donor intent, we will do that. So don't feel compelled to check something. I think that's going to be the worrisome or that will be worrying for some people. It's not that if you can't find anything that matches, you're not going to get funding. That's not the intent. It's just that if we can figure out the matching thing, it's almost like one of those puzzles that you move the pieces around. And because we have funding, we have very generous funding. And what we do is kind of try to figure out but well, first we decide on who gets funding, and then we kind of match the funds with the people. But there's other funds that can go with the, if, as I said, there are broad funds and then there are more narrow ones. So we start with those narrower funds that align with donor intent. And if you're ever a donor in the future, it's so much easier for programs to have funds that don't have restrictions. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Then there's that, whoops, I didn't, oh, what did I do? Shoot. Oh, no. See, I'm not used to working without a mouse. Okay, there we go. Let's see. So any questions so far about just kind of the general sense of the awards, the proposal process and why we do it? Shalandra or Marmita, do you have anything to add?
Just want to make sure whether if I like have a fund for my government, am I eligible to?
Yes, yeah, yes, you. We had someone else in the same,
I think that would be something, you have to check with the activist, your advisor, then. Because if you're funding from the government, then probably it's a J visa. Yeah, that is J visa. It's not F1, so they need to check with their, activist advisor, because sometimes they're not allowed to take funding from them.
oh, well, we did it for another person. All I got funding.
No, it depends on how the visa is set up. So
Okay, well, okay, so she checks with the ISSS. And then you can see if you can get, tell them it's a scholarship, but it's for summer research, it's focused for research. Okay. Okay, there's always the visa stuff, unfortunately, that we have to consider. Our intent is to support all students, but we don't want to get you in trouble with your visa. So these are the parts of it. You write up one page, single space, so that gives you a little more 11-point font, that gives you a little more room, and a 1-inch margin. So we got very specific because I will tell you that you can't cram, just do, follow that. And then there's a plan for summer and or fall. So if you're just applying for summer, that's fine, or just applying for academic year, fine. But you should probably do the whole thing, we hope, because there is money available for that. And so in the beginning, tell us, what is your research area? What kind of describe that really briefly? And then how will what you're planning to do fit into that? So why are you thinking about these projects and how will that support what you're doing? And then what are the aims? So then you get kind of narrow pretty quickly. So what do I aim to do? What are the aims? And then what tasks or activities do you need to accomplish those aims? So you would say, like, I have aim 1, and then I have task or activity A and task or activity B, and then what do you expect to come out of that, those tasks and activities that will help you reach your aim? So it could be a lot of people, I think have to think about as you're thinking about your aims, we want you to have, enough substantial work so that it makes sense, right, for your funding, but also don't feel like you need to cram a lot in there that it's not feasible for you to do. So, people say, oh, I will write and submit a paper by the end of summer. Well, most of us, I wish we could all do, but it's probably not feasible unless you've got a really good head start on it. Now, if you're already, through your analysis and you're writing up your results and you're polishing up and getting, feedback and stuff, then that's feasible. So you can be anywhere in the process of things. You could also be at the start of a process like a manuscript. And you could be doing your IRB and the lit review. And, that could take, 9 months, so, well, maybe not that part, but you should be going through the process, you know what I'm saying? So work with your advisor on timing and how much time it takes. Most of us underestimate how much time it takes to do these steps. considering that in the summer, you probably have more time to focus. And then during the academic year, depending on where you are with coursework, you have less time. So you also have directed research going on probably, and you also have your assistantships, and so there's a lot of other things going on. So just try to think in your mind of the things that you have going, and you know, when we talked, you know, if you came to Armita's time management session early on in the semester, you know, where will this fall in your, you know, your big rocks? Is this a big rock or a little rock? And will you, you know, if you really want to try to fit this in, so you have make progress toward an outcome, not just fit it in somewhere. So this is one of your things you would want to plan to do over in the academic year. So and the outcomes, I think, are really important. So, you know, people have, you know, some people have attended stats camps if they really want to beef up their prowess in a, you know, certain kind of a statistical skill. The SEM, I think they do that. Did you attend one of those, Alex?
Not for SEO.
No, for what? But
I was gonna do one for latent cost analysis,
Like,
but I ended up not.
okay, there's some that are out there. Yeah, they are expensive, and you know, some people use these funds to do that. I mean, that was so. Those are legitimate kinds of things. If that's where you are, many of you are not at that point that you really know what you need for your dissertation. That's usually when you're ready. You know, I need an analysis thing. I can't fit another class in. I just want, you know, that analysis, and you can do it in camp. But they are expensive, and we do also have resources at the U that you can get those in a workshop or something. So, you know, just think about the cost benefit analysis there. But you can do, you know, there's a wide variety. Think about research broadly, about what are the things that go into developing research, you know, and you know, sometimes you have to, if you're doing community engaged work, you have to spend time building relationships in the community with people. That's legitimate if you are, you know, actually very methodical and systematic about it. And what does it take, and what's the outcome from that? How do you measure that, and how do you report that? And then what is the next step for it? So that would maybe be sometime in the summer if that's what you're starting, but then you should be moving quickly on to the next step. So there's a lot of things. If you're looking for a secondary data set, Jolanda would be a really great resource for that. Maybe you spend a little time in the beginning of the summer looking at those data sets and seeing if they can answer your questions. Are there variables there? You're in Tim's class. Are you in Tim's class now? And so you're working with secondary data, right? No, next semester. So you have a little, you know, practice at that. And then, so you know, that's a legitimate research endeavor. You don't always have to collect your own data for your work. And some of you that might want to publish, there are really great secondary data sets there. Anything else that we haven't, I mean, to spur people's thinking about what are some of the tasks that would help them to their research aims? So publishing is often a research aim. We did have critical review in here. So those of you that are in the critical review, that can't be the only thing you do in the summer. But we've kind of, I think our committee moved away. Before it was like, you cannot do anything on your critical review in this proposal. We thought that was a little unrealistic, because after your first year, you really have to focus, you know, and get it done, maybe even after your second year. So we think it's really wise, especially if you want to publish it, and then you can make sense that you know, your goal is to publish your critical review too. So you might want to think about that. I would not say that we would be probably very favorable if that's the only thing you did over the summer. So what is that, you know, and then you have to think about what are the tasks you will accomplish. And that, you know, you need to then make progress. So if there's actually support for doing it, then we don't want to see you then lagging behind in that, because I think part of we talk out of both sides of our mouth a little bit when you say you got to move, but we don't give you that time in the summer to make that move. So I'm hoping that this takes out some of that anxiety in our system a little bit. So anyway, acknowledging that does take time. Yes.
So overall, milestones could be a aim, as long as you have other aims within your.
Yeah, there could be your dissertation proposal development. would you say? I think that's legitimate research,
Like master's thesis stuff?
master's thesis.
Okay, cool.
I think that makes sense, Alex. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And I think again, that's, being really clear about what are the steps you take. So there's, there's progress toward it. And maybe it's that and something else. One of the things we know that, to be marketable, you have to publish, and it doesn't really matter the kind of work you do. There's usually publishing that's necessary. And it can be, different kinds of publishing. So it can be applied research, it can be evaluation studies, if you're going into a policy work, it might be an evaluation of a policy that you do kind of a systematic review of it and then publish it in a journal that accepts those kinds of things. So there's a lot of ways that you can do scholarship depending on your career goals, but the goal is to get you, support to do those kinds of publications for your portfolio and to move you toward graduation and marketability. So we want you to, land in a place that fits with your career goals, but that makes you competitive for the job. Otherwise, we're not doing our job either. So think about that as well. That's the both and. Yeah.
About master's thesis.
Yeah, yeah. And that, that because if you're not doing you're not going to do your critical yet. So I think that's a good question for those of you that are in the MA PhD or the MA. So how will the board help you accomplish your degree plan, your portfolio competencies? And that's not for the MA folks, but MA PhD and professional goals. So keeping in mind that it's important for us to understand your career goals, your professional goals as well. So then we have the task and timeline, and Chalandra provided in that link gives us some really a variety of ways that people can put together tasks and timelines. And I think that was from your work at NSF. Is that right, Chalandra? You want to say anything about those?
I think not to create so many tasks with like so many deadlines that we look at it and say, there's no way you can complete all of this work. Make it reasonable. We want you to be, we want you to think large, but not too large, okay? So think carefully about what you can honestly accomplish, especially now since you'll be writing a report about what you have completed. So think very carefully about that. And this means you also need to think carefully about your program of research. It really does need to be cohesive. So as you're thinking about your publications, make sure that they will fit within your program, because we don't want to see, oh, they had this opportunity to work on this paper, but that paper has nothing to do with their program of research. So that we want you to really think carefully about the projects that you're embarking upon. Okay, make sure that they fit, and you can demonstrate the cohesiveness of your work by referring to your publications, your presentations. So please think carefully about that.
That's a really good point. When you get ready to maybe apply for the DDF or any of the dissertation kinds of things, people look at your record, and it really doesn't matter. Numbers really are not the issue. It's, do you have like a steady buildup in your program of research? So you could have three really strong publications that show that you're making progress toward this, this goal of becoming a scholar in this area. And I've seen some DDF, DDF, successful DDF, doctoral dissertation fellowship proposals that have very few publications, but they're really strong, well-placed publications. And then of course they have some presentations, but that's another thing. You don't want to be shotgun about your presentations. Just go to any conference that's available, because that shows people read that as, oh, that's a shotgun approach and maybe padding a little bit. We don't need that. We need really, again, really strategic ideas in there. So I think that's well done. The timeline, I would echo that too with what Chalandra said, is that, you know, there's sometimes there's overlap, but you have to be, you know, cognizant of, like, if you're working on 3 months on this, that means you don't just usually don't solely focus on one thing at a time. There can be overlap. But it is thinking about, you know, where your energy can go and the time you can devote to that. Given, you know, that we do also want you to have a little downtime in the summer, and renew a little bit, so you won't be steadily working on everything all at once, you know. So I think that's good. And then there is an opportunity, in addition to that one page, if you have a conceptual model, a diagram or a table, so that can be included in addition, if that will help us understand. Like, for example, you're to a point where you, maybe after spring next year, first, you have a conceptual model for your area of research that you wanted, so you're going to do an analytic model, and you're working on a paper with an analytic model coming out of your conceptual model, or you have an analytic model for the paper you're working on that shows the relationships among the variables you're studying. Please feel free to do this, and it's submitted as a PDF, so those should stay pretty well together, or, you know, some kind of a graph or a diagram or a table. And then your CV, and then we ask that you use the University of Minnesota CV, and then that's linked. I think you probably talked about first years, you talked about that maybe in the orientation, but it's also used in your portfolios. And then this is another one, you know, try to think about, you know, don't worry. People always worry, oh, I don't have any in my first year. That's okay. You know, think about it where you are in the program. Don't make things up to stick in there, like, you know, just like in progress stuff. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, we know that people are always in progress on something. If you have, like, we have manuscripts in process, but please be honest about the approximate percentage. You know, really don't report it if there's only, like, I got a working title and an idea. And I've seen that, and I know that because they've been my advisees, and they're on their Vedas. I'm going, I don't think so. I mean, it's great that you have the idea, and maybe you've done a little bit of lit review, but that's really not a manuscript yet. So make sure you get a little bit into it before you report it. It's just an ethical, kind of an honest way to do it. But don't worry if you're not. We're just gonna look at you and where you are, and it's okay. We also think that, you know, non-peer reviewed publications, sometimes people do things, but they're not peer reviewed. It doesn't mean that they're less valued. Book chapters are great, but they don't go through the same kind of business. They go through some review, but not necessarily a blind peer review process. The editors probably review it. So it's just a little different thing. So you separate those out. And then, like, encyclopedia entries are very, very different. They're very brief. They're just, everybody likes to put those under their publications. They're different, so they're good. It's not a problem, and they're easy to get published. I would say relatively easy to get published. I'm not saying don't do it, but recognize that they're not the same. They're not valued the same as peer-reviewed publication. A lot of students do some encyclopedia entries, and that's great. So you might talk with your advisor about that. Teaching, I think it's important. You know, we want to see you a well-rounded scholar, so be sure you have your assistantships listed. You can even list some of the things you've done if you've guest lectured, if you've done grading, if you've done student advising, that's great. And if you've done independent teaching, some of you have done that. And then if you've done any kind of applied experiences, community collaboration, that's great. And then there's a portfolio progress document. I don't know if Stacy's gone over that with the first year cohort or not, but it just kind of tells you, you fill in that place about what you did, and, you know, your theory paper in 8001. Again, this is going to first year, second year, third year, whatever. It's going to look different for all students. It'll fill up, trust me. But first years, don't worry about not being a lot in there. Okay. And then the David and Karen Olson and the Mary Ellen McFarland fellowships are for those at dissertation and Those are 3-page research statements. And then a 1-page optional appendix. So you would do the 1-pager and the 3-pager, because if you are not, we only have 2 of these, and we have probably more than that eligible for the dissertation. So if you don't, aren't chosen for the dissertation fellowship, then we will consider you for the other award. So don't neglect the 1-page, do that and a 3-page. So you can be considered for those, but these are a little bit more extensive. It's a 100-word abstract, a working title, and there's a little bit of setting it in the context. It's very much like the doctoral dissertation fellowship. You set it in the context of additional existing research, which is basically a brief lit review, and then significance, and then you're going to do the a description of what you're going to do. Your proposal, a research proposal of what you're going to do. That's what the dissertation is. And then, a little bit about your career and professional goals and how this is going to contribute to that. So that's the 3-pager, very similar to the DDF, the IDF interdisciplinary fellowship. And then, so there's just some really, I won't go over the formatting things, you'll know that, but just please try to follow that, because it makes it so much easier for us when we're reading it to just see everything the way that we have it set up. And then Sumitra then organizes it for the committee, and she's accepting it in that way. It's due on a Sunday night, just so you have the weekend. Then on Monday morning, we start to process those. So we won't accept, we really want to have them done in by Sunday night. I will say that nobody's going to do it at 1 a.m. Monday morning. So as long as they're in there by, I didn't put that in there, but you got a little fudge room. But she's not going to go past 8 a.m. when she starts work Monday morning. That's when she'll say, no, I get it. But we're not going to be like, they didn't get it in by midnight on Sunday night. But please try to honor that, and do the best you can. And then she'll send instructions, because I think there's a link, etc. So I just is a little bit about the decision process. So I'm going to stop here for a minute and get questions about just the proposal itself, and then we'll go into the rubric a little bit. It's warm in here, isn't it? Or is it just me? Okay. More questions? I hope this thing is recording. Is this good? Should it show here that it's recording? Now I'll have to do it again.
Recording.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. You see something?
There's like a blinking circle where it says your screen sharing.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I never quite know, all the bells and whistles, you never quite know. Okay, let's go into the decision-making process. So what we do is that there's the 4 of us. So it's this year, it's Chalandra, Armida, Ty, and myself. We have using the rubric, and I will bring that up now so I can stop share, and then I'll pull up hello, Chalandra. Hello, you're front and center now. Let me grab the rubric. Okay, let's get to the actual nitty-gritty of it. Okay, let's see, where can I put this? There's got to be a way to move this somewhere, right? I can just do this. Okay. So we each take the rubric and all the individual proposals, and we do our scoring. And then we send the scores. So we have a spreadsheet, and then we enter our scores into the spreadsheet for each student. And then we come up with a total score and an average score for across reviewers. And then we meet, and then we talk about them, and then we've made notes on our sheets about strengths and areas for growth, things that aren't clear, etc. So we have some kind of overall feedback. Now we don't share that individually. We have it available. If students want to know some feedback, we can give it globally to you. We won't say Armida said or Kathy said or Ty said, but we can share some just general feedback about where there were strengths in what areas and where there might have been areas for growth, and kind of what the, you scored lower in this area, and these are some of the reasons why. So that will be, I mean, we can share that kind of feedback. But as a rule, we don't give specific feedback. So we do this, and, it's pretty, I think, pretty straightforward. You just, if you have any questions about this, you can ask the three of us. But this tells you how you would shape your proposal. And this is why you always go to a rubric when you're writing your proposal, because is it clear and precise of what your research agenda is? How the same thing is how clear is your proposed project will contribute to your agenda? Do you have aims that are significant and doable? And they were research related. And then what are the specific outcomes or products? And then are they appropriate for you're proposing? And then how will this help you in your program that contributes to degree progress or professional goals? So these are the, so if it is a milestone, that's fine. If it's a longer term career goals in terms of publications and whatever, that's good. And then we are going to look at writing quality, so that's why I say have somebody else do some copy editing for you. And then we'll look at your timeline, and you can see that there's this idea that project seems achievable in timeline proposed. It's the feasibility. So it's the idea that we want to be clear. We want you to be clear about how you're going to proceed and be realistic in what you have planned. And then we do look, we look at your portfolio if you're using portfolio, and this has published manuscripts. So this is really something we, Armida, Ty, Chalano, and I are if you're in your third year and there's nothing in the pipeline, and we talk about pipeline, meaning something's on the way. So then we have concerns. If you're in your first year and you're not, by the time we review you don't have anything submitted, that's pretty understandable. But we would expect on your portfolio to see that you're working on something, right? Or that you have a draft of something with your advisor or whoever you're doing directed research. So be sure your portfolio stuff is articulating all the things that you're working on. So if your directed research has you working on developing a manuscript with your supervisor for directed research, put it in there. So even if it's not done, you're developing those competencies. So remember that that's about competencies, but it also tells us you're working on some of these things that will demonstrate your competencies. So that, I hope that makes sense. But we can read that in a number of ways, and I will tell you, we read it with the student in mind in the best sense. It's not like, oh, they didn't check that box. We try to say, okay, are they really making progress? Are they working toward this goal? We will look at 1, 2, or 3, and trust me, we'll clear that up. And I don't think you're going to have problems. As I said, if you were in the in-person statement, people are doing well in this program. Generally, people are not making progress. And the goal of those things is to get away from saying you're good or you're not good. I hated that. I hated that good and not good. It's 1, 2, 3. So 1 is just go, keep going. You're doing 2 is like, you're starting to slip. That doesn't mean you're a bad student. It doesn't mean you're in danger of getting out of here. It means you're starting to, and you actually have time to make that improvement. So by the time we review, you probably have moved to a 1 because you probably are in process already. But we find that if we don't give kind of a heads up to students, very few, they keep lagging and lagging and lagging, then it gets harder and harder to get back in sync because then things start piling up. So it really is with your best interest at heart. I know that's probably for some, it's hard to understand that, but was meant with the best intent. So we'll try to clear that up. maybe the language on written paper is harder to communicate that. But, we really will look at it holistically. We'll look at, your whole program, not just like one number. So we're gonna look at your progress, your portfolio, we'll look at how you talk about your research, where you are, with your goals, et cetera. So, I think we're good. The thing that we added, and this was from student feedback, is that we're going to ask you, we're going to look at your reports, not this year because we didn't, I mean, it is for this next year. This year, we didn't tell you. So we can't, we're not going to use it to evaluate it, but for the proposals that come in this year and we award funding, next fall, you will have to report on your summer funding. And then for the next round, we will include it. So we want to give you a heads up that we'll look at your reports, were they submitted, meet the deadline, and did you accomplish what you said you were going to? Now, there's reasons that you don't always, even for grants, there are things that come up in your life that derail you. Data don't always come through the way you want to. Coding, you can explain those things, but how do you do that? You mean you do it in a report? So that's fine. I mean, but you have to be able to explain, your goals, what happened, and it's basically where you are and how you will move forward based on what happened. Does that make sense? So it's just, it's a kind of checkpoint to see. It's also an accountability for us to funders that we are checking to see. And that's what the student that was concerned is, that it's also kind of holding people accountable across students, because we want people to use these funds in a productive way that makes sense for their progress in the program. And not just as like an entitlement, which was a concern with a couple of students. So we just want to make sure that that is an equitable process in that way. And this is one very, I think, a low-key way to do that. And we allow you to tell us what you've accomplished and where you might have run into stumbling blocks. And that is an okay thing. I mean, we all run into stumbling blocks. Life happens too, but also things happen as a researcher. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so that's a quick run through that rubric. You might need time to digest, and you can certainly ask questions. I don't see is there anything in the chat?
I see a couple of things in the chat.
Okay, Demetra, is there a question?
So I think, Brenda had said that, there is, in the about proposal, the link for the, university's EV template is not there. So I'll just add that.
Oh, it's interesting. It is in mine, but it maybe didn't. Maybe you send a different version.
No, I downloaded the one that you sent us.
Oh, well, it's okay. It was live. It was like, okay, we'll fix it. We'll fix it. We'll fix things that are, yeah, we'll fix things. Yeah, this has to be changed to January 28th at the top too. So we'll send out a new, version. You can just try this one. Any questions? Any concerns? Hope you're excited about this. This is a wonderful opportunity, I think, to get support. I would, I bet if you asked people in other programs, if you know anybody, that we're one of the few, well, I shouldn't say one of the few, we have some of the most generous donors and actually, it really predates this college, because it was some of the people that are donors are people that I knew when I was a student. I mean, they're old home economists, to be honest with you. And they were often single women, that a lot of people didn't kind of wrote them off in some ways because, well, they don't have any money, but they lived very frugally, and they donated money because they really believed in education. And women that had PhDs were real pioneers. Irene Odd, I don't know if she's one of the donors, and she supports some international students, and they're working she had such pushback as an extension, faculty member, and she has horror stories about some of the things that she had to put up with, in like the 50s, 60s, and it's really interesting. I always just have a real soft spot in my heart for these women that were pioneers in that field, and we kind of stand on their, their shoulders now, and then they had the foresight to, give their money to support graduate students. And they, when the college disbanded, some of the monies went to design, housing and apparel, which was in their department. Some went to food and nutrition. And we were able to get many that were more family social science focused. So I just really think it's a privilege to have this support for grad students, which is, like I said, not common in the university. So it's just so much fun to give away money, to tell you the truth. And we don't, we give it away with the idea that you're going to use it in a really good way. And I have seen really good things occur because of it, because that takes some of the pressure off. Finances are, I study this stuff. Financial pressure is real. So we're glad that we have that available to us. Okay, well, if there's no, I'm gonna just see everybody's bright and shiny faces really quickly. Who's still here? Oh, hi, Hannah. Didn't see that you joined. Yvonne Guanyu. So I'm gonna sign off for now. Yeah, I have a buffer between my next meeting. That's what I built in. That's a time management strategy. And I should probably name it something else. That's the only thing I can think of. We're going to sign off, and thank you for coming. Thank you, Amita and Jalandra, and the whole committee is available to answer questions. They know as much about this as I do, so please feel free to talk with any of them. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Sumitra, too, for all your support for this.
Thank you.